It's certainly something, if you're a managed AMRP client, there are things that we are doing and will be doing that will make this position better for our landlords. And this is around rent increases. So basically what they're saying under the Renters Reform Bill, in order to enact a rent increase, a Section 13 notice must be issued. So a Section 13 notice is the legal document. It exists now. We issue it as a matter of course when we increase the rent level. But I know there are a lot of landlords who would agree, sort of offline, in email or in a conversation, would sort of manually agree on a handshake, a rent increase. The ability to do that will be taken away in effect. And I don't think this is particularly a bad thing or anything that I'm concerned about. But what they're saying is any rent increase should be appropriately documented in a Section 13 notice and issued to the tenant properly. And I don't think that's anything to particularly be afraid of. It's been our sort of common practice for many years that we would do that if we were increasing the rent level. They're also saying there can be no rent increase in the first year of the tenancy agreement. So if from day one of someone move in, the rent must be fixed for a full calendar year. And we now must give the tenant 2 months. You'll see the trend, notice periods increasing. We must now give the tenant 2 full months notice of a rent increase, not 1. So a rent increase today carries 1 month's notice period. Come implementation of this legislation, it will be 2 months notice to the tenant before the rent increase can take effect. They also say the rent increase must not exceed the market rent. And my advice, and certainly how we deal with that, is we keep evidence of what the market rent is at that time. So if we increase a rent, we would have a file and documents that demonstrate what other properties are being rented at in the area, what the rent level is, and why we think that's a fair market rent. So if you're increasing the rent level, what I would say is keep documented evidence that prove why you think you're moving to a fair and just rent level. And we can only have one increase every 12-month period. And the reason I think this is particularly important, and this is another sort of call offer that we have, where very happy to extend an invite for the rent review call. Baxter, I'll ask you to pop that one in there, but this is something we offer quite often. And I do find that landlords are overly generous. So private landlords will think, I've got this nice tenant and I'm going to leave them on the same rent that they've been on forever and a day, and I'm not going to put the rent up. There are a number of problems with that, I think. What I've just described is going to mean that our ability to change and increase rent is different in the future and is limited in the future. So what we're encouraging and suggesting landlords do, and it's something that we've been doing as landlords for some time, is to actively review rents, to fairly budget test with our tenants. So we do budget test, and then we implement fair rent increases so that we keep in line with market rent. If you're a landlord who is like many that I speak to, who hasn't increased their rent for a number of years and perhaps knows you've fallen behind, I think we have a sort of 3-month window in the early part of next year when I would say take advantage of our rent review process, which I'll ask Baxter to pop the link in the chat, or action this yourself in some means. My concern is if this doesn't happen quickly and your rent is well below market rent, you are going to end up being capped and restricted in what you can do about it once this legislation is implemented.